All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. We're going to uncover the deeply hidden, honestly kind of blood-stained history of Earth that existed long before humanity was ever even a thought. I mean, imagine the planet for a second, right? Before clay was ever molded, before the very first human took a breath. Was it just empty space? Totally silent? Just waiting? Well, according to ancient theological texts and Islamic tradition drawn from our sources today, our human story is actually just the final chapter of a much older, much darker, and frankly far more terrifying saga. So when God announced the creation of a human successor, the angels asked a genuinely terrifying question. They asked, "Will you place upon it one who causes corruption therein and sheds blood?" Now, what's absolutely fascinating here is the implication behind that question. I mean, think about it. How did beings of pure light, who only know absolute peace, even conceive of concepts like corruption and murder? Well, it brilliantly illustrates that Earth already had a dark, violent past. The angels weren't just guessing about the future, they were actually remembering the past. Okay, to really understand this cosmic mystery, we have to look back at how creation actually unfolded long before humans, which really set the stage for a massive existential test. So before time, space, or matter even existed, the very first creation was the pen, commanded to write literally everything that would ever happen. And this was followed by the preserved tablet, which is kind of like the ultimate cosmic record. Then the immense layers of the heavens were perfectly balanced, and finally the Earth was formed. But here's the thing. The Earth wasn't created just to sit there as some empty, silent rock. No, it was prepared as a grand stage for an unprecedented test of free will. So here is the absolutely crucial point to remember. Humans were not the first ones here. The Jinn were created first. They were made of volatile fire and given the incredibly dangerous gift of absolute free will. You see, unlike angels, who are made of pure light and essentially programmed to obey, the Jinn were crafted from a swift, smokeless fire. They were highly intelligent, totally self-aware beings, and they had unimaginable physical power and speed. We're talking about the ability to traverse realms in the blink of an eye. They were the original inheritors of the Earth, basically given the ultimate freedom to choose between right and wrong. Now, these beings didn't just wander around aimlessly, not at all. They actually built sprawling civilizations of energy and fire right across the mountains and valleys. And initially, they lived in devout peace. But they didn't build with heavy stone and clay like we do, no. They constructed these incredibly complex societies based on energy, systems, and powers that we literally can't even fathom today. For centuries, they populated the oceans, the deep valleys, the highest peaks. They worshipped their creator and basically maintained total harmony across the globe. But as you might guess, unmatched power mixed with totally unchecked freedom led to a pretty tragic downfall. And this descent is wild. It perfectly shows how a tiny, tiny seed of arrogance mutated into global destruction. It didn't happen overnight, you know. It started quietly, with just a simple thought: I am stronger, I am better. And that arrogance birthed this really intense envy among their tribes. Well, envy quickly escalated into raw tyranny. Soon enough, they were just entirely consumed by power struggles, and for the very first time in the history of the universe, blood was shed on Earth. It was absolute, unbridled chaos. It got so bad that the corruption and bloodshed reached this terrifying peak, and a literal cosmic cleansing war erupted. Angels actually descended as soldiers of pure light to just shatter the Jinn's tyrannical kingdoms. At this point, the Earth was effectively crying out under the weight of all this unchecked oppression. So this wasn't just some peaceful intervention. It was a total, overwhelming dismantling of a completely failed civilization. The seemingly invincible empires of fire were completely crushed by an unstoppable force of order. The surviving Jinn, they were driven deep into hiding, just scattered to the absolute most remote corners of the world. Yet from the ashes of this completely destroyed civilization rose Azazel. He was this incredibly unique Jinn who fought the corruption so fiercely that he was actually elevated to live among the angels. Azazel was an absolute exception to the rule. While his people were just totally consumed by greed and murder, he remained fiercely devout. In fact, he actually fought right alongside the angels during that great cleansing of Earth. His dedication was just so profound, his worship so intense, that he was literally lifted out of the earthly realm and granted a place among the absolute highest heavenly beings. However, his very success planted a hidden and ultimately fatal psychological poison right in his heart. It was the silent whisper of superiority and self-admiration, all cleverly disguised as religious devotion. As he looked down at the ruined earth and then back up at his own exalted status, a super dangerous narrative started forming in his mind. I did this.
I triumphed over my own kind. I ascended because I am superior. He started measuring his entire worth by his achievements and his fiery origin. He honestly thought he had already passed the ultimate test, completely unaware that his true trial hadn't even begun yet.
So following all this destruction, the Creator decreed a new beginning, but this time not from fire. Dust was gathered from every single corner and color of Earth, basically weaving all of nature's contradictions into one new physical form. It was collected from the vast plains, the jagged mountains, the fertile valleys, the dry deserts, and it contained every shade, white, black, red, yellow, and literally every texture, from the softest silt to the hardest stone. This is so cool because it beautifully foreshadowed everything humanity would become, right? Our incredible diversity, our capacity for immense cruelty, and of course, our potential for profound gentleness. For ages, this brand new creation just stood there as a lifeless hollow statue. And Azazel, he mockingly inspected it, seeing absolutely nothing but its physical weakness, its emptiness, and its earthly needs. See, before the breath of life was ever given, Adam was just this empty vessel of clay. And while the angels looked upon it with this curious reverence, Azazel approached it with total disdain. He would circle it, inspecting its hollow structure. To him, it was just this pathetic, heavy thing that was going to know hunger and thirst and fragility. He completely missed the potential hiding within that vessel because he was just so totally blinded by his own fiery ego. And that brings us to the ultimate cosmic contrast, the fast, arrogant power of Azazel's fire versus the seemingly weak, hollow humility of Adam's clay. Fire is, it's visually spectacular. It's dominant. It inherently rises up. It's honestly the perfect metaphor for Azazel's soaring, unchecked pride. But clay? Clay is heavy. It's lowly. It's grounded. People literally walk all over it. Yet it was this exact humble material, this grounded, simple clay, that the Creator chose for the absolute greatest honor. And then everything changed instantly. A divine spirit was breathed right into that clay, bringing it to life as a conscious being, carrying the profound secrets of free will, knowledge, and cosmic responsibility. That silent statue suddenly had breath in its lungs and actual light in its eyes. But we're not just talking about physical animation here. Adam was endowed with the capacity to learn, to name things, and to comprehend the universe in a way that even the angels couldn't do. This heavy, super fragile clay was now housing the heaviest burden in existence: absolute moral responsibility. So when God officially announced humanity as the new successor, the angels weren't protesting or rebelling, but their deeply traumatic memory of the Jinn's era sparked a very genuine fear of repeated bloodshed. Now, their earlier question clicks perfectly into place, right? When they heard a successive authority with free will was going to inherit the earth, they immediately flashed back to the wars, the fire, the screaming, and that massive cosmic cleansing. They were terrified, simply because they knew exactly what happens when free will is combined with power on earth. Commanded to bow in respect to Adam, Azazel uttered the very first logic of opposition in existence. He was just entirely blinded by his own cosmic hubris. The Creator ordered all those present to bow, now not in worship, but in honoring this brand new creation and the divine secret that it held. Every single angel instantly submitted and bowed, but Azazel, he stood tall. Staring at this man of clay, his centuries of hidden pride finally just erupted. He declared, "I am better than him. You created me from fire, and him from clay." He wasn't just being disobedient here. He fell because he judged worth by material origin rather than divine spirit. And that instantly transformed him from the pious Azazel into the eternal adversary, Iblis. It's a really staggering realization when you think about it. His thousands of years of perfect worship were completely undone in a fraction of a second. Why? Because true failure isn't really just about making a mistake. It's about arrogant justification. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just blamed his origin and doubled down on his pride, becoming Satan, the absolute symbol of destructive arrogance. And this brings us to a super profound reality of this whole explainer. Human weakness is actually our greatest strength. You see, unlike the angels, we actually choose to obey. And unlike Iblis, we can choose to repent. Think about it for a second. Angels obey because it is literally their nature. They have no choice. The Jinn had immense power, and they let it completely corrupt them. Iblis made a huge mistake, and his pride locked him out of redemption forever. But humans? We are flawed, fragile clay. We stumble, we break, we make really terrible mistakes. Yet our unparalleled beauty lies in our ability to realize our faults, put our massive egos aside, and actively seek forgiveness. So, as we walk upon the buried ruins of a totally forgotten, fiery civilization, the ultimate question remains: will we bear this immense responsibility with humility, or are we just going to repeat the disastrous cycle of arrogance? We are the final successors. We are walking on an earth that has already witnessed the horrifying cost of unchecked pride and tyranny. The story of what came before us isn't just some old history, it's a stark, blinking warning light. So the next time you feel an unearned sense of superiority, or you judge someone based purely on where they come from, remember the very first being who ever said, "I am better." What will you choose to be? Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with me today.